From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. Brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your humble host, Dustin Von Warnke, back with another podcast for you. So excited that you've taken the opportunity to download our show, stream it online, however you are listening. Thank you so much for doing so. We love having you guys on board our little warship here, if you want to call it that, our starship, our enterprise, our podcasting vessel. We're having a blast out here, and I love doing this show so much, guys. This is so therapeutic for me to be able to express myself creatively and create content like this that goes up on YouTube and iTunes and all over Podcast Nation. Outlets and stuff like that, and just the podcasting is just a great tool as far as finding people. They can listen on their own time, their own terms, don't have to be tied to a terrestrial radio station, although there's nothing wrong with that. And I was just on Chester Moore's radio show, More Outdoors, which will air, I think, the week that this podcast airs, which is the week that I'm recording this. I'm getting this the day before I'm sending it and recording these bumpers. And really, I've got a great show lined up for you today. Jeff Stewart, Jeff Crypto Hulk Stewart, as he goes by on Facebook. Awesome guy, great heart, conservation, youth, sportsman, avid on a lot of different parts of being a sportsman. AR-15s, crossbows, scopes. I mean, fishing, catfish, and white bass, and all that other stuff, man. This show is just all over the place. So I normally do a hunting show and alternate that with a fishing show. This podcast, I'm getting out there and we're kicking butt and we're kind of covering everything. I was going to do a fishing show because I did a hunting show last episode, and I wanted to just kind of dive in and just have fun. And so Jeff and I could get on the phone and talk for 2 hours and not even realize the time has passed. I mean, that is how much buddies we are with this stuff. And I initially wanted to talk about fishing, but then we got talking about hunting, some of the products that I was reviewing, some of the videos that he's watched that I've done, his cookbook, Texas Jack, and just a lot of different things going on there. So, I mean, we're all over the place on the show, but ICAST is coming up, and we're going to be all over the place on those shows too, and those are going to be fishing shows, so I figured why not do an all-outdoor show before we get to that coverage. So, anyway, we're just having fun over here, and I just love the podcasting medium. Love to have the chance to talk to you guys on your own terms, listening through your earbuds, and that kind of intimate experience of you listening to me and the guests that I bring on the show in your head, basically, through your earbuds, through your over the ear headphones, or in your car, or while you're working out, or while you're at the gym, or while you're walking your dog, or whatever. Thanks for taking us along with us, and thank you guys again so much for telling a friend. Thank you so much for your 5-star ratings on iTunes. Thank you so much as well for visiting our website, fishgame.com, subscribing to our newsletters. I'll talk more about that later in the show. And, thank you guys just for being there and listening, man. It means the world to me. This show is just a dream come true for me. It's been one of my dreams that I've had to bring it over to Texas Fish and Game in 2016 after I started in 2015, which has been 4 years ago now. And then 3 years ago for bringing it to Texas Fish and Game. It's just been a dream come true. We do one of these shows every 2 weeks. If you've never heard the show before, we just have a blast on here. So stay tuned. We'll listen to a few episodes, kind of get the feel of things around here, and you'll see I'm just a wild and crazy man. I do a lot of crazy things in the outdoors. I'm not some kind of an exhibitionist to show off or anything like that. I love to create, and the podcasting medium is something I really enjoy, and to just have you guys along to listen to this stuff is incredible. So, a couple of housekeeping things first. In the show notes, which you can find on Facebook, in the description, on YouTube, you can find these at fishgame.com in the post. They'll be in different places, but everywhere you hear this podcast, you should be able to access some show notes. I have a picture of Jeff Stewart. If it comes through on the podcasting app that you're listening to this on, have his links to Facebook, have his links to Alpha Dog Blades, his knife company, products I've reviewed. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is a product I've reviewed called it's an SD card reader. I can't really pronounce the company name that well as I can with a lot of these overseas companies, but it's a trail cam SLR camera reader. It's an SD card reader. that basically you can read a micro or a standard size USB, not USB. It's getting late here. You can plug in a standard SD card or a mini SD card or micro SD card, and plug that into your phone, Android or iPhone, and or into your computer, and it reads it. It's really a slick piece of technology. So I put the link to that in the show notes, is where I was going with that. I also talked on this podcast about the BOG DeathGrip, the BOG Fieldpod MAX tripod, the BOG Fieldpod MAGNUM tripod, and then Texas Jack's famous Venison recipe cookbook that Jeff wrote, co-authored some other books with a gentleman that he does some cooking stuff with and some other things. And I just love Jeff Stewart, guys. All right. And so what I'm trying to say is go check out the show notes. That'll have all the links to all that in there. You can buy some of this stuff. You can check it out online, any of that stuff. And then, Jeff and I talk all over the place about a lot of different cool stuff. So I don't want to, we went really long on this show, so I don't want to spend too much time blabbering on about this before we get into the podcast. But I wanted to definitely make sure that you knew to check out the show notes for those links. I also have links at fishgame.com of newsletters that were in the newsletters this last couple of weeks, as well as this coming up week that you're going to be getting this podcast on Thursday. You're going to see that I've got an article that went live last week when you're listening to this on Loaded for Boar, which is about hog hunting with calibers for wild hogs that I trust and love in the industry. I've got 4 or 5 different ammunition brands and kind of their bore solution round and that kind of stuff. Also have a lot of different things, product reviews, online gear rundown. I did a couple of years. It's getting late here. Sorry. A couple of weeks ago on fishgame.com, and you can check out the new product review or the product rundown. Roundup, I think is what I call it, the online product roundup. It's this stuff I've been buying from Amazon and testing out and doing some reviews on. So anyway, hopefully you find all that of good value to you. Here is my interview with Mr. Jeff Stewart. We'll see you after the interview is done, back with some more information, and here we go. Joining me on the phone, Mr. Jeff Stewart, Jeff Crypto Hulk Stewart. Such a pleasure to have you back on the Best of the Outdoors podcast. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you, Dustin. It's always a pleasure to come on and shoot the breeze with you.
Do our social graces, and be all professional, everything. And then we get wild and crazy on this show is what we typically do on these interviews. So,
Exactly.
Hey, before we get started, I've got a new product I want to plug. This is a friend of mine that is overseas that just started this company, and I don't know if he branded this product or what, but it's basically a SD card reader and a micro SD card reader that has a USB, iPhone, and Android plug. And it's like a little tripod that you basically, you have the top part of it's a USB. The other side is half iPhone and half Android. And you basically download the app on your phone, plug this into your phone, insert your SD card, and you're in business. You can save the photos to your phone.
I got to get me one of them, man. That sounds awesome.
And it comes with a dang SD card with it too. I'm going to also recommend that he does 2 SD cards that are class 10, and then maybe up the price a little bit because it's like $20, maybe $21 for this thing. For your fishing photos that you take with your external camera, not with your cell phone. And for your hunting game cam photos, which is really what this was designed for, to be able to see all that on your phone is so cool. So anyway.
Well, I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I have, I guess I've been part of the evolution of this process. Started out game cameras whenever they were, basically you took your 35 millimeter camera and put it in a housing.
Yes.
And then you had to take your film to a developer, one of the chain stores or a 24 1 hour photo rather, or something like that to, the next ones that came along, you actually had to plug your computer or whatever, take the camera home, plug it into your computer and download. Then we had the regular SD cards that would go in them, and you had to take the card out, bring it back, put it in your computer. Then we had the little card readers that came out that were had a little screen, little 4-inch screen or something like that on it, and you're either dragging a computer with you in your backpack, dragging a card reader, like that has a screen on it in your backpack.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's already got a cell phone in their pocket.
Yep.
If you can use your cell phone for the card reader, all you have to do is take that little piece in your pocket. I mean, you can go get your card out of your camera, put a fresh card in, go climb in the deer stand, and sit there and scroll through pictures while you're hunting.
Yep, and it fits in your pocket. That's the cool thing. It fits in the palm of my hand, and it's got a slot on the middle of it now for a standard SD card, and right below it a micro SD card. And it's just it's slick. I mean, I've never seen anything this cool. I mean, I've always wanted something like this, but it's one of those things where you're like, do I really want to spend the money, or can I just haul my laptop along or haul my other camera along or whatever? But this is just so inexpensive. It's a no-brainer. So I'll put a link in the description of this show in the show notes, and I'll put a picture of it so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm trying to help a friend of mine that developed this, and basically just trying to push it out there. And obviously, if you support the Amazon link, that'll help the show along and everything. But it's just something that's cool. I thought it was just neat, so I'm just kind of a nerd that way. And I think you think it's neat too. So there you go. We're both nerds.
I really do. I'm going to get my hands on one. That's how neat I think it is.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it after we get done recording. But so basically, it's summertime. I just got done. I talked about this in the last podcast when we talked about hog hunting. I just got done with a fishing trip with my son out on Lake Belton. We didn't really slay the white bass and the hybrids, but we at least got out there and gave it a good old college try. It was like 108 degrees heat index, and it just really no breeze. So it really wasn't a pleasant fishing trip out of all the fishing trips I've been on, but we at least gave it our college try, and I think we caught 7 fish, 6 whites that we were able to keep, and 1 Gasper-goo that I filleted. And used my Bubba blade, had a lot of fun doing that, and used my fillet table that I use with Crosswater Outfitters, the Fillet Maker board, which I highly recommend for cleaning fish, along with the Bubba blade. And man, I'm just having fun, just trying to stay cool in this heat, but also just try to have some fun fishing. What have you been up to?
Now, are you gonna use that goo for cut bait, or
no?
Or
I'm gonna eat it. You can eat Gasper-goo.
They just got so many of those little pin bones in them that they're not a bad tasting fish, and it's kind of an art to cleaning them.
Yes, I learned that.
Obviously, if you went to the trouble of cleaning it, you've done it enough to know how. But I've never had a problem with the way they tasted. It's just they're labor intensive to clean them and get all those little pin bones.
It's kind of like in saltwater cleaning a hardhead. It's got to be the hardest fish I've ever cleaned in my life as far as a small fish. Now, I haven't cleaned a lot of them. They'll dull a knife like a hog will dull a sharp knife, but I've had many guys on the show talk about that they're decent to eat if you just put up with the stickers and keep the fins away from your, But the funny thing is, I'm in Louisiana, near your part of the world. Basically, we were going to bring in a gaff top catfish, saltwater catfish, and I wanted to keep it and clean it because we do that in when I go to the Texas coast. Louisiana coast guys were laughing at me. They finally dawned on me. They finally dawned on me. They have too many trout and redfish to eat, where they don't need to eat gaff top. I guess.
But here's the thing. You're talking about how they dull a knife or whatever. If you get you a knife from Alpha Dog Blades, a custom made knife,
shameless plug.
I promise you, they won't dull it.
I love Alpha Dog. I love that you can plug your own stuff, and that you're a blade maker, and I love it. I love the fact I've seen some of your knives; they're beautiful. I follow your Facebook page, and this is just some cool stuff for sure. So good. I'm glad you were able to work that out.
We're talking about I'm really good friends with Phil Broussard, Cajun Phil, and Kevin Broussard. Phil Broussard is a idol of mine. Grew up idolizing him, watching him hunt and fish forever. And one day, before I was ever even writing for Texas Fish and Game or doing anything really in the outdoor industry other than testing a few products, being on a couple of pro staffs, Chester Moore, our editor in chief, one day knew that how much I idolized Phil Broussard, and he said, "Do you want to meet him?" And I was like,
Yep.
Does the fish want water? And he said, well, here's his phone number. And I called Phil and had about a 2.5 hour conversation the first time I called him. And, you know, have had many, many more hour and plus conversations with him. Been invited to come go fishing with he and Kevin many times, and just I have not made it down there to fish with them, and I've got to.
Wow.
But that's what, you know, they're like, we've got so many redfish and so many trout that they don't fool with any of the lesser tasty species, even if those lesser tasty species are just a hair below. They're
Right.
like, why would I eat one of these fish when I've got a ton of these?
Yep. I think I finally figured out the Louisiana culture in mine. And we've got a couple of listeners that live in Louisiana and fish both Texas and Louisiana. I know we have a bunch of Texas listeners that fish Louisiana and the lakes and stuff over there, and the river systems, or I fished the marsh in Louisiana several times now, and it's a lot of fun. The redfish capital is kind of Venice. I've been down there a couple of times and had a lot of fun doing that. But I mean, this neck of the woods is, as far as the Texas Louisiana area, southeast Texas to western Louisiana, and then even to southeastern Louisiana, is just amazing when it comes to what you can catch.
Oh, yes, definitely. And here where I'm at, of course, we don't have any. I'm far enough up the Sabine that we don't have any brackish water or anything. Right. I'm on the north side of the dam, so there's not even any chance of brackish water.
Right.
So, we're sticking with, blue cats, channel cats, flatheads, or Opelousas as we call them, crappie, and during the spring of the year, we have our huge white bass or sand bass run. And the thing that's getting me right now is we've had so much fresh water.
Yeah, because of the rain, right? That's what I mean, yeah.
That the water temperature is way cooler. Even though it's 112 degrees outside, the water temperature itself is, I would venture to say, a good 8 to 10, maybe more degrees cooler than it usually is this year. And we're a good 12 or 14 feet up the bank, higher than we are. Usually by July, the Sabine River is down to a trickle coming through.
Right.
And the river has went from being 150 yards wide to being 50 feet wide in places. You can walk across it in a lot of places and not get over knee deep. Then some places, are really, really deep holes. But this year, the river is still at like flood stage. It's just barely inside the banks where it's not flooded. And there's still, like McFadden Park here close to where I'm at, is still flooded to where you can't drive and launch your boat because the park is underwater.
Oh, goodness. Wow. Well, and that was the case at
you're dang near jumping in your boat.
No, that's awesome. That's the case at Belton Lake too, where I was at a couple of weeks ago with my son and my father-in-law. The Temple Lake Park, which is one of the areas a lot of us launch out of. We were going to meet there, and then we ended up meeting at Arrowhead Point, which is another boat ramp. And basically, we got in there, and the Temple Lake Park had just reopened because it was underwater so bad. The playground and everything was underwater because of all the rain. So I definitely feel what you're saying there.
Absolutely. The one of the things as far as fishing goes, this has really put catfishing on a premium, because with the water like this, those catfish are able to come up the river and to stay up the river. Yep. Where a lot of times by this time of the year, they've recessed into the deep holes. Most of your fish have went back toward the lake. They're not really coming upstream like they are during the spring of the year when the water is high. Since it stayed high, you're able to get in those shallow grass flats and right along the tree line in the edge in 4 to 6 foot of water, and you're still able to catch those 2 and 4 pound blue cats and a few of your 2+ pound channel cats just on earthworms and things like that. It's a little swift for dough baits, but your earthworms, catawba worms, shrimp, crawfish, if you can get your hands on them, are going to produce just limits of catfish right now.
Great. That's good to know. And I always like to keep in mind, you know, the basics of catfishing is relatively simple. You don't have to have expensive gear to get out there and get it done. You don't have to have a really expensive boat. It's just the simplicity of it. It's the same reason. One of the reasons why I go bluegill fishing with my son just off the bank and the shores of our little parks and stuff here in the Leander area and the Cedar Park area is just to catch brim, or bluegill, whatever you want to call them, panfish, so we can go catfish with them and use them for cut bait. And one of the fishing expeditions I was on with my father-in-law back in February, one of the guys, Ricky, on the boat that I was on, he called it shank bait. That's what he called my so kind of like prison bait, I guess, shank bait. You know, he's like shank bait. You know, it was just funny. It was just his. So he said, get on some of that shank bait, and man, did we catch the fish on that trip. But you know, it's just one of those things where you know, a lot of times, a lot of other fishing that you might do for non-game species fish like bluegill and stuff like that can help you. You throw those in the freezer when you get home whole, and you got cut bait for your next catfish trip.
And you know, another good thing about this water being so high right now is for bow fishing.
Yes,
you know,
I was going to say that too.
I'm very enthusiastic bow fisherman. I have been doing it, oh Lord, since I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I was introduced to bow fishing. And with this water up, it's got those grasses flooded, those gar, alligator, and long-nosed gar and stuff. Even the spotted gar are still up in the grassy flats, up in the shallows. And, you know, a lot of people can shun a gar if they want to, but that's some of the finest eating you can get is an alligator gar.
I'm glad you said that.
They're tricky to skin, to clean.
Yep.
I use an old survival knife that's totally made out of metal and drive it right down at the base of the skull, about 2 inches deep, and then take the hammer and hit the back of the blade and go all the way down to his tail, and then just peel it open. There's 2 back straps that go down each side, just like a deer. You get those out, slice them into about 1 inch thick medallions. You mix you up a little flour, a little dark lager beer, some Cajun seasoning, and add a little extra red pepper into it, and a little garlic, a little onion. Put that in there, make a nice little batter. Put the gar in there, soak it around for a few minutes, take it out, deep fry it for about 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and that's some of the finest eating you can get.
It's 10:30 at night, and I'm starving to death now. Thanks a lot, Jeff. I'm glad you say it, because everybody that listens to the show has got to be tired of me saying that I eat alligator gar now. And the funny thing is, my little fishing ministry, Crosswater Outfitters, where we, you know, serve Christ through serving the soldiers and serve Christ through serving the international students and that kind of stuff, they always save gar for me. And because they know I don't necessarily like to clean them, but I like to show people that they can be cleaned. And we eat every dang one that we end up cleaning at these events that we do twice a year on Lake Belton. And Belton is full of gar. In fact, Marty McIntyre's killed more gar and carp and buffalo and everything out of those lakes than anybody I've ever met, that and Stillhouse Hollow. And they're just numerous. I mean, they're everywhere. And they just reproduce like kittens. So, but I mean, the deep frying or making gar balls, which is kind of a Cajun thing, right? You know, or I'll whatever. But you know, just or boiling them with some crab boil or whatever, and doing stuff like that. But I mean, it's just an incredible. Yeah, but a lot of people believe you can't eat them, and it just kills me, because I'm just like, they're a delicious fish not to waste. If they're really small, I understand not messing with them, but if they get bigger, I mean, 4 or 5 foot long nose gar, shoot, stick that thing in the frying pan.
I remember, you know, when I was growing up, it was, gar's a trash fish. And gar, everybody had this misconception that gar ate dead stuff.
Right. And they only eat live stuff like crappie, right?
Look, I have bow fishing. My biggest gar was 196 pounds.
Golly.
And whenever we cut her open, she had a 5-pound largemouth bass and 2 crappie that went about 1.5 pounds each in her belly.
In the belly, I could just see you open it up. There's a 5-pound bass. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
And everybody thought I was nuts because the guys that I bow fished with, they did not eat gar. And
Right.
I told them, I'm going to show y'all how to clean a gar. And on this particular gar, I actually used a skill saw, set the blade at about a 1/4 inch depth,
Yep.
and ripped the gar down the middle of the back with a skill saw, and then peeled both sides open and took those 2 back straps out. And these 2 back straps, I mean, they were as big as the biggest hog you've ever seen, the back straps off of one of them.
Oh, I'm sure I've seen back straps that big.
I
Yeah,
sliced
absolutely.
those bad boys into about 2-inch thick steaks and put them on the grill over some apple wood, and I basted them with some spicy brown mustard. While
Yes.
a little honey and spicy brown mustard mixed together, basted them with that while they were cooking. Then right before they were done, I dusted them with a little bit of slap your mama seasoning, and those boys ate them, and they were like, if we had ever known that they were like this, we would not have been doing away with our gar.
They're a little bit of a pain in the butt to clean. Like Marty, my resident bow fishing guide here in Central Texas, uses a recip saw. I use either a machete or a tin snips to get down the spine, and it's a little bit taxing on your hands if you clean a couple of them like that. But
Hey, like I said, get you one of those. You can get them at different stores. Harbor Freight has them for $10. It's a survival knife, Rambo looking knife.
Yeah,
and it's all metal. The handle on it is solid metal.
Cool.
You take that sapsucker and just take you a hammer, probably a 4-pound hammer. You drive it down about 2-3 inches deep down at the base of the neck, right behind the skull. Then take the hammer and hit the back of the blade. Hold the top of the blade with the handle with your hand, and just tap it down the middle of his back. And within 30 seconds, you're from head to tail. Then you do the same thing down each side behind the gill plates.
Sure.
And just take both hands and pull and have somebody do a little cut. And next thing you know, you've got him holed out.
Because they're not hard to fillet out once you get into that meat. I mean, I didn't think we'd be talking about gar on a fishing episode like this. Lord only knows what we talk, but this is really good stuff that a lot of people just don't know. And I mean, I think the more I try to do this show, the more 4 years going now, educate people as far as these aren't trash fish. A gar especially are native game species, and not really a game species, but native non-game species. They're native species, and they've been around as long as the good dinosaurs have. They were relying on the river systems before they were lakes. And
Yeah. And another thing a lot of people don't know is one of the reasons gar are so prolific in their reproduction is that gar eggs are toxic.
Yeah, I know they're toxic to humans. I didn't think about them being toxic to other fish.
They're toxic to birds. They're toxic. They're toxic to a lot of things.
Interesting. That's why they're so prolific. That makes sense.
You always wondered. You come along and you see a bunch of eggs there, and those are frog eggs or whatever. And then I learned, those big blob of black eggs are gar eggs.
Yeah,
they're black. I mean, they're dark black.
Yeah,
and
they're real dark.
Man, any bird or any animal come up here and just have a field day with these eggs, but they don't.
Because
why don't
they're
they?
bad. They're bad for you. Yeah, everybody knows not to eat those. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they'll kill, otter or raccoon maybe or something, but I'm sure they'd probably give it a stomach ache. It wouldn't.
Oh, probably so. Yeah, I imagine so. But you're right. This is a great time of year for bow fishing. Marty's guiding trips right now with GarQuest, and then there's a bunch of other bow fishing guides. They're just bow fishing guides, up all over the place, that are doing day trips. A typical 4-hour night trip from like 8 p.m. to midnight. It's a great guide trip for the family, with anybody that you hire. And then a great fit, rod and reel fishing trip like I just did with my son and my father-in-law. The guy I was with, Larry Thompson's not a fishing guy, but he's good enough to be one. And it's just one of those things where it's just getting out there in the outdoors and enjoying life and getting the kids involved. And I mean, there's just so many great things to do in the outdoors right now.
Exactly. There's never been a better time ever in the Texas outdoors than we have right now. I know it's tragic. We've had a lot of floods. We've had a lot of damage from floods. And we constantly focus on the downside of it with the tragedy and everything else. But if we turn around and try to look at the positive a little bit with this water is life to the outdoors.
Right.
And we've opened up flooded timber and things like that to fish to go in there and feed off of some of the worms and different things, insects, different things. But we've also allowed for some of this silt and some of this stuff to go into those flooded areas. And so when those waters recede, that silt is going to be fertilizer and going to help things.
Yeah.
And we've got fish where there haven't been fish before, and we've got wildlife. We've got ducks, we've got otters, we've got beavers, we've got just all manner of life. And it's also pushed those hogs out of those river bottoms up into a little bit higher land and a higher country, and kind of concentrated them.
Right.
And made them a little bit easier for us to get out there and get a crosshair behind the ear or run them in our traps or whatever. So it's kind of helping us with some of the hog problem to actually, concentrate them in more of a small area so we can get to them. So it's just, it's the time of year that if we look at the positive aspect of it, it's a wonderful time right now in the state of Texas for an outdoorsman or woman.
Yeah, there are a lot of great opportunities there because of that. And we had just talked about hogs and everything on the last episode about with Mike Wenzel, the Wild Hog podcast host, and there's some really good things. Chester Moore just had me on his radio show, and that should be coming out, I believe, the same week that this show airs, and I'll confirm that and put that in the show notes if I have a link to it by then or not. But basically, it's a good thing to have those hogs in a more concentrated area because you have more opportunities. And I just finished reviewing, and this just went live on our newsletter this week, which is the week before this releases, a BOG Fieldpod MAX tripod. Okay, it's a fully supported tripod. And basically it shoots, you put your crossbow, rifle, anything like that on it, any kind of long gun or crossbow on it. And, think about that for hog hunting. I mean.
I want one of those so bad because, I do a lot of hog hunting and a lot of varmint hunting.
Right.
And a lot of my varmint hunting is a lot of walking, a lot of stalking, a lot of moving with my call and stuff from location to location. And there's a lot of times whenever I get set up on the corner of a field and those 200-yard shots aren't that big of a deal. I can make those from resting on a knee or something. But then you get those coyotes or bobcat or whatever that will come out, or even hogs that will come out at that 300-plus yard mark. And if you had that pod that, like you reviewed, that BOG pod, I could be making those 300-plus yard shots. Now, granted, I have shooting sticks. I love my shooting sticks. Don't get me wrong. But that thing, I mean, it was like having your own shooting bench, portable shooting bench.
Yep. That's what this thing. Caldwell is owned by the same company that owns BOG, and it's the same company that owns Smith and Wesson. Long story there, but it's American Outdoor Brands, and they basically, it's very similar to the Caldwell Dead Sled, I think is what they call it, or whatever. Anyway, it's a similar product to that as far as the engineering. But man, the innovations, and I guess we'll talk hunting and fishing both in the show. I'm just kind of letting this run loose because man, when you and I get started on something, we are so like-minded about stuff, and love the same stuff. This is just too much fun. But
we're liable to go anywhere. We're liable to talk about astronauts and outer space.
It's, Bigfoot. The whole 9 yards because of all your research and everything. So there's just a lot of different. But I've got two of these BOG pods, and then I've got something called the DeathGrip. And the DeathGrip basically is a vise that kind of holds on to your weapon, to your pistol, rifle, crossbow, whatever the case may be, typically for long guns, balances it, and then basically allows you to shoot it fully supported. It doesn't have a front and a rear. That's even cooler than I think the front and rear supported ones. I think I'm going to send one of these BOG pod rests to you and one to Chester, and have you guys play with them because I've had a lot of fun. I just did some videos. You saw one of my videos. You just commented on it.
Oh yeah,
that was one
I saw
of them.
two different ones.
Yeah. I put both of them live. One's the Magnum and one's the Max. So for what it's worth. So yeah, that, and then the DeathGrip's the other one.
I try not to miss those videos, man, because those are products that I'm getting up in age,
Yeah, I am too, man.
I'm not an old man. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Right.
47, but
I'm 40.
Football and things like that have taken their toll on my knees and my back and everything. Any product that can make it easier on me and make it not necessarily to where I don't have to put any effort, but can help me make that ethical shot.
Right.
Can help me to where I don't have to trail a wounded animal. So that's all in shot placement. And if you've got a pod, if you've got that thing and you can get a bench rest, I'm not going to say it's as steady as a bench rest, but it's so close.
It's close. Yeah,
so
I'd say.
If you can get that bench rest accuracy out of your rifle and make that ethical, perfect shot, why wouldn't you do it?
Right. No, I agree. And it's just kind of like,
we're not talking that these things cost, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They're affordable.
Right. They're $100 to $200 in some cases.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like this is a $600-700 item.
Yeah.
This is, like I said, I haven't looked yet, but I would imagine, it's probably 200 down or something for this.
Yeah, something like that. For the Magnum,
in that area.
But
my goodness, when I go out in the woods, I've probably just in my rifle alone, got over $2,000 in rifle and scope. So a couple of $100 to ensure that that once in a lifetime shot, maybe. Last year I took a 22-inch wide 13-point double drop tine buck, and luckily I was in a box blind when I made the shot. But had I been in a ladder stand or had I been sitting on the ground or something somewhere in that area, who knows if I would have made that shot being so nervous because, this black horns, everything you wanted in the best buck of your lifetime. Something like that BOG pod would make that difference in that shot of that deer hitting the ground, or your teenager, your 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid that you're just getting out in the woods and going to let them take their first deer or doe or young buck or something like that. And if you can put them on something that's going to make their shot steady, so that they don't get frustrated, they don't get nervous, they don't miss or shank that shot. I've seen so many brokenhearted kids that blew the back leg off of a doe or something because they were just so nervous and shaking so hard at that shot, and a good rest would have solved it all.
Yep, that's solid, and that's what I really looked at it for when I first got these from my guy over in American Outdoor Brands. He was like, "Let me just send you 3, and you can evaluate it. And we have some new stuff coming that we'll send you." And I'm like, "That's cool." And I didn't think much of it because, to tell you the truth, Jeff, and I've said this on a video many times before on my YouTube channel, I'm not a fan of tripods. They get in the way. And I finally this year broke down and got a standing tripod, shooting sticks for standing hunting, where I've got a running gun and I'm doing spot and stalk hunting. Okay. And so I was like, it's kind of cool. They had the camo-legged devil and then the CLD and then the red-legged devil, which are the 2 different types of BOG pods. And those have been on the market for years. Mm-hmm. But basically, I got to kind of BSing with the guy from BOG and at the SHOT Show this year, and he said, I'll send you these. And I fell in love the minute I sat down, and you can stand up with these things too. But the minute I sat down to shoot, because I love to sit down and shoot my crossbow in my backyard, I'm like, this feels like home. This feels like I don't have to worry about. Shooter. Yeah.
I know you got a son. You get that young shooter out there sitting in a chair, resting on that BOG pod, shooting in the backyard for hours upon hours. They don't get tired.
Yep.
They don't want to quit. They don't want to go in the house because they're tired of standing and doing things. That kid's going to shoot. They're going to practice. They're going to get more comfortable with like a crossbow. And even out, if you live in a place where you can shoot your rifles, you get that kid out there with a rim fire and
22,
build their confidence before you move them to that center fire rifle before deer season gets here. And the next thing you know, you've got an experienced shooter that, too many times in the outdoors and hunting and everything, I've run into this so many times in my gunsmithing and sighting in guns for people, and I've written a few articles about it. You run into people that don't fire that gun except during deer season.
Right.
And then they come to you and they're, my gun's off, my scope's off, I shot at this deer and I didn't hit it. Well, you shoot their gun and it's dead on. And you come to realize, well, how many times a year do you shoot this gun? Well, I shoot it once or twice. I got the same box of bullets I bought in 1987.
I've heard that story.
You know, they shoot it once a year.
Right. Yeah, my dad's one of those guys. And I'm guilty. I've been guilty of it before. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where I don't really reload or do anything or hand load or anything like that because I don't shoot that much. But at the same time, I'll get out with an air gun and a crossbow and I will practice the fundamentals religiously. You know, and
exactly.
That's what, because I've read Steve Lamaskis' column or article, I forget what it was, years and years ago in our magazine that talked about what are you doing during the off season to prepare for that moment of truth.
Exactly. You know, I shoot a lot, but I don't shoot as much as I want to. But there are times, you know, I've bought those snap caps that go in your gun so you're not dry firing. And there's a lot of times when I can't get out and actually shoot that I will take those snap caps and I will chamber them in my rifle and I will sit there and pick out a target in my pasture or you know, somewhere, you know, that's safe. I mean, even though it's an unloaded gun, I mean, we treat them like they're loaded. And I'll just go through the motions of loading that round and seeing the animal, taking the gun off of safety, squeezing the trigger, breathing, practicing the breathing discipline, and making the shot, then doing the bolt, ejecting the round, putting the gun back on safety, the whole, you know, I will practice that. And people may think that's weird, but, you know, in 40 some odd years, probably I started hunting by myself at about age 7, squirrel hunting. With a old 410 shotgun. You know, I have not, I haven't shot anyone. I haven't, you know, had those really horrible mishaps or things because I practice the safety. I practice over and over in my mind what I'm doing. So many times I'll see, on hunting shows and things, they'll shoot a deer, they'll get so excited and they're like flailing around with the rifle, the barrel of the rifle, or they've taken a picture of a deer and they lay that gun down with the barrel pointed right at their
face. Exactly.
Or something like that.
Stomach,
and I cringe and I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness. Well, over the past 40 some odd years, I've practiced not doing those things.
Right. The common sense. Yeah.
The common sense. And if you've got that pod and you're able to get out there in the yard with your child, even if it's not your child, even if it's a neighbor's child, hey, if you don't have kids, see if the neighbor's kid wants to go out there and shoot crossbows with you. You know, something.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, get those kids out there. If their parents don't mind, you know, get those kids out there and practice with them and let them practice. And you'll be happier for it. They'll be happier for it. We'll all be safer for it. Yeah. And we're helping promote and keep hunting alive.
Which is so important. I mean, there's some guys on YouTube that have the hashtag, you know, make hunting great again. I forget what group it is on, and I watch them go live every once in a while. And they're basically trying to foster the same ideas of, you know, let's keep the sport going, let's keep the kids going into it and everything like that. But it's kind of like, you know, to shift gears back to fishing, you know, it's kind of like me learning how to slab for white bass. You know, I mean, feeling for the bite on the fall of that slab is probably one of the most exciting things, and to do it in a social environment of a fishing trip when you're with other people, I don't know if many things touch that.
You know, and that's one type of fishing for white bass that I really haven't done a lot of. I really haven't done it.
You a topwater guy, or what do you think? What do you typically do?
We around here we throw a road runner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We throw a oh gosh, what is it called? It's a little George.
Yeah, little George. Yeah, little Georges. Yeah,
a little George is, you know, got about a 1 ounce solid lead chunk with a little spinner on the back of it, a triple hook. Right. You know, but that sapsucker will catch white bass.
Yeah, that's cool.
But we use a lot of that. A lot of live crawfish. I mean, if you around here, if you want to catch white bass, that live crawfish, but we catch them schooling a lot.
Yeah.
And so schooling, I'm throwing most of the time a spinnerbait at them, an old H&H, yellow and black H&H. For some reason, just they can't resist it. Or an orange and yellow H&H with the willow leaf spinners. They just can't resist it for some reason. We throw that at them, maybe a little top water action of some kind.
Yeah, tiny torpedo or something like that, something smaller.
Yeah. Just a lot of times I'll throw a fluke, one of those the small 3-inch fluke at them, and they go nuts over that too. A little shad color, a little dark belly with a silver side.
Sure.
They go nuts over that too. But as far as spoons or anything, I just really haven't ever had the opportunity. I've never been with someone that knew how to do that and knew where to go do it. So, I would love one of these days to go and do something like that, because I'm another one of those weirdos. I like eating the white bass.
I do too. I clean the ones that we got from the fish along with the Gasper goo and threw them all in the same bag. But yeah, I mean they're not bad to eat if they're cleaned right. And I mean, as long as you get that bloodline out and that kind of stuff. And we went with a guide. I talk about this every once in a while on the show. Royce and Adam Simmons out of Gone Fishing Guide Service out of Lake Richland Chambers. Those guys can slay some white bass. And right now they're making a killing out there as far as they're off the water by like noon. We were off the water by 9 a.m. We limited out by 9 a.m. the last time I went with him for that. And what he does is about a foot above the slab, he'll put a jig, like a Marabou style jig, and they'll hit both.
Yeah.
Just drag it through that school, and you don't even have to fish. I mean, it won't even make it to the bottom before they hit the dang lures. And it's just that was one of the most memorable times for white bass for me I've ever had, and I enjoyed that with my son and my father-in-law, which is really a great thing. And you got guys like Lake Texoma, known for striped bass and white bass, Schreiber Express. You got Bill Carey over there and Chris Carey and that whole team. They live off of artificial baits on that lake. They don't fish live bait off of that lake in that particular guide service. And so there's a lot of opportunities there. And this is a great time of year. I mean, for getting something like that done, getting your kids outdoors too, for sure, like you were saying.
Well, here on the Sabine, coming out of Toledo Bend, in the spring of the year, early spring, late February, early March, we have a huge spawning run up the river.
Yep.
And, I can remember the first white bass I ever saw on the river. Prior to about 1980, 82, I fished that river my entire life. So has my father. Never saw white bass, never saw sand bass in that river. So it's like they just showed up one day and we started just catching them. But the thing was, there was no limit on them at that time. You could catch as many as you wanted. And I kid you not, I have sat on a sandbar with a couple of friends and literally caught 200 to 250 in a day's time.
That's crazy.
And we were, back then we were keeping them, and what we would do is we would fillet them.
Right.
And we would take the heads and the guts and we'd put them in our hog traps. And we were catching hogs with the heads and the guts and everything, and we were filleting them, and everybody's like, "Oh, you can't eat them things, they're nasty." Well, they weren't filleting them right. We got to just experimenting with our filleting methods with the electric knives, and learned that if you fillet them just right with that electric knife, you can fillet that red bloodline right out of them. Yep. You don't have to do a secondary fillet. You can just fillet that right out of there. And I'm going to tell you what, once that's filleted out of there, I don't use, on my sand bass, I don't use a cornmeal coating. I use a flour, an all-purpose flour.
Kind of like how you do gar?
Mix
like
my
with the beer?
Flour just like I would my meal, with my red pepper and my salt and everything. And then I dredge my fish in egg, then flour, then egg again, then flour again, then drop it in that grease. And when that flour turns just a golden brown, you talk about the best tasting sand bass you've ever eaten.
It's kind of like, I guess I'm not saying that, it's kind of like chicken frying the fish in a way, right? Am I saying that right?
It is just like chicken frying.
Okay.
You do it. The only difference in it is the seasonings you put in there.
Right.
In with it, you know, I use like a good. Actually, what I use is a Zatarain's crawfish boil.
I thought you'd be a Texjoy guy myself, since you're a Southeast Texas guy. I thought you'd be a Texjoy guy for sure.
No. I am my mother.
Guy.
My mother was born in Louisiana.
Okay.
My wife's whole family is Cajun, just about it. From Orange, Bridge City, to Lake Charles, Sulphur, Hackberry. That's where her family's from. So, I'm Cajun. I may have been born in Texas, but I got that Cajun roots all around me. And man, that Zatarain's, you put a couple of good pinches of the actual crab oil, not the seasoning that you can buy that you shake on food. Right. But the actual big bottle
boil
of
itself,
big container of crab and crawfish boil, and use that to season either your fish meal or your flour, and it just tastes so much better.
Wow, that's awesome, dude. That is so cool. And that's really a unique way to do it. But it reminds me of a story that Max Milam told me fishing with guide service Striper Fever out of Lake Buchanan several years ago. It's been well over 10 years ago with some friends. He had a college. He was in college back then, and he's now one of their head guides over there. And he was basically going back and forth with, he had a friend that didn't want to eat fish at all, and he was a farm boy, and he said, I chicken fried the fish. And he said he never put it down. He said he ate every bit of it that he had made, that he chicken fried the fish. So I just that made me think of that story, So that's how he made it, palatable to the farm boy, So
absolutely. I'm not scared on my fish to try something.
Yeah,
and when you catch a lot of sand bass and stuff like that, you got a lot of fish. And just like with your Gasper goo, certain times of year in that river, them goo are running.
Right.
And you can go down there and catch 20-pounders all day long. And you take those couple of those 20-pound goo and, flay them up, experiment with them, season them up a little bit different. Yep. If you wanted to try something, try it. You want to grill it. Use a fish like that's not an expensive fish, and it's not something that, man, if you mess it up, you're going to just kick yourself in the tail end. And give it a try. I love experimenting with wild game. I wrote a book here last year, Texas Jack's Wild Game and Venison Cookbook, because I'm Texas Jack. A lot of people don't know that. Over writing the Texas Jack cookbooks with a friend of mine, Dennis Waller, a couple of years ago. And, that's how I got to be able to do that, to write an actual cookbook, is because I wasn't afraid of experimenting and trying things. And if it tasted good, I'd shove it in somebody else's mouth and say, man, taste this. And they're like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
My wife mostly is who was the guinea pig on a lot of those recipes. But if 3 or 4 people say, man, this is the best I've ever eaten, then, you've made yourself a recipe.
Yep.
And you can keep going. Carp. A lot of people won't eat carp.
I'm one of those people.
And I've tried carp several ways and found 1 or 2 that they were okay to eat, but they're not. So they make great catfish cut bait, some of the best. Yeah. But buffalo, if you get a buffalo, smallmouth buffalo or black buffalo, my biggest buffalo right now is 63 pounds, bow fishing. But I fry those up. Buffalo ribs are some of the best eating you can get.
Marty, my bow fishing guide here in Central Texas, loves buffalo ribs, and to me they're just too oily. It's oilier than salmon, And I'm used to salmon being oily, and I love to eat salmon, but I just, it's too much fat, for me. And I love to eat a lot of stuff a lot of people don't like to eat, but I'm not a fan. But that's cool. I mean, I think that's good that you do. Different strokes.
Well, what I do to mine is I like to take mine and I put them in a pot and boil them,
parboil them, okay,
for about 2 to 3 minutes on a good hard rolling boil, and then pull them out, because you don't want them to where they fall off the bone done. That will boil about 80% of that oil out of them.
Interesting.
Then you set them to the side and let them cool. Once they're cool, then I like to take them and I will do an egg batter, basically. Dip them in egg, and then the whole flour or cornmeal, whichever one you prefer, and then fry them up.
Chicken fry.
You get rid of about 80% of the oil. You get rid of about 80% of that oily taste.
Okay, that's good to know. I may try that then, next big buffalo I get. But yeah,
I don't like a buffalo over about 5 to 10 pounds.
Okay, well, because I was always thinking all he would use was the big ones, and I'm just like, I'm out, But I mean, different strokes, I guess.
Big, they're like anything. It's just like me when I catch a 70, 80 pound catfish.
Right.
I turn it loose.
Right.
I don't eat it. It tastes bad.
Yeah.
Plus, that fish is going to produce 1 million eggs next year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a matriarch of the sport for sure.
I keep my 2-pounders, my 4-pounders up to about 20 pounds. I'll keep in a catfish. But once they get over about 20 pounds, I turn them loose.
Yeah. We're the same way with our fishing ministry and the other catfishing that I do outside of that. Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's mortally injured and isn't going to make it. In that case, you can get you some catfish nuggets.
Or gets it in the gill or something. Right, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. We've had that
problem too. But I mean, it's only in those cases that we keep those typically. And the first catfish video I ever did, I showed them pulling them up for pictures, pulling the big catfish that we tie off to the dock for picture. And I didn't put anything in it about us releasing them. And I had one guy got real angry with me on my YouTube channel, and he was like, "Release those big cat." We did. So I went through and re-edited the video showing that we actually released them. Actually, video of shots of us releasing the catfish. So anyway,
and I hate it when people get sideways like that on YouTube or on Facebook on commenting on a post or something, because the thing is this. If you're legal with what you're doing,
yes,
I may or may not like it. But as far as me chastising you and telling you, oh, you're a bad human being because you did that, hold up.
Yep.
It's legal. And you were within your bag limit. You were within every legal deal. So I don't feel the need. I used to be one of those warriors that was doing that, but now I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
We have enough enemies outside of the hunting and fishing community. We have people that are trying to tear us down, trying to get rid of us, trying to outlaw us, trying to do everything. We don't need to be tearing each other down. If you want to do something, send somebody a private message or something like that, maybe. But as far as chastising openly and being some kind of a superhero on social media, I just think that's the wrong thing for us as outdoorsmen to do, unless we see someone breaking a law or just really being unethical or unsafe.
That was all about my article in the Lone Star Bowhunters Association magazine that I did, just came out, and anybody can email me or write me through dustinsproducts.com and get a copy of it. I've got several copies left over, but and I'll send you one too, Jeff. Just send me your address later.
Great.
I put the whole magazine together. I edited the whole thing. I had it published, had it designed and everything. And that's kind of one of my volunteer things that I did this year. And that was a life-sucking opportunity, too, because the design company, everything that I used in the magazine, Texas Fish and Game, is so on top of it and everything like that. The company we used for that, I'm just like, oh, my gosh, it's pulling teeth. But I got it done. And I think I'm going to upset some people because I'm part of 2 bow hunting organizations, Lone Star Bowhunters Association, which is pretty big, and then the Hill Country Bowhunters, which is more regional to the Liberty Hill and Central Texas area that I live in. And we had a guy that wanted to shoot a vertical bow. I don't know if you've ever seen a vertical crossbow. Okay, yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They're made by the same folks that make draw lock. And so they asked me to come in.
Hickory Creek.
Hickory
right?
Creek, yeah, you got it, dude. You're on it, yeah. So I didn't know if many people knew that, but Drawlock made Hickory, Hickory Creek made Drawlock too. I asked the guys, the other officers there, would y'all be anti a Drawlock? They didn't know what a damn Drawlock was. I'm like, if you watch videos, hunting shows 10 years ago, that's a no-brainer. But anyway. But I said, guys, look at it like this. I said, we have enough enemies. One of the guys that was for this whole deal, like I was, because I'm a big crossbow guy, was like, well, hey, he's not shooting. He's shooting standard size arrows, a little bit shorter than standard size arrows, not any thicker. They're not like crossbow bolts. It shoots more like a bow than it does a crossbow. Well, they had me in to do a class on crossbows, and I brought up the point. I said, guys, what if one of you was disabled and couldn't pull a bow back anymore? Do you just say, sorry, you can't shoot here anymore, or are you going to open your arms and say, we'd love to have you shoot a crossbow on the course? And it made them all think that this is about the greater good of being an outdoorsman.
It's definitely the greater good.
You see my point?
I used to be one of those guys that was, down on crossbows, or, crossbow, that's a bow gun, and all of those cliche things, that us people, bow hunters say when they're uneducated. But then, I had one of my bow hunting mentors when I was a lot younger, and had this kind of feeling about crossbows.
Chip on your shoulder.
And he sat me down. He sat me down one day, and he's like, so you don't like crossbows, but you like compound bows. Well, what about the guy that likes a recurve bow, but thinks that a guy that shoots a compound bow with all its gadgets and all its sights and all of that is cheating?
Yep. They're training wheels.
Cheating is a compound bow not cheating.
Right.
Well, the longbow guy thinks that the guy with the recurve bow with its center shot shelf and all of that kind of stuff is cheating. The guy that's shooting cedar arrows thinks the guy with aluminum arrows, and the guy with aluminum arrows thinks the guy with the carbon arrows is cheating, and feather fletches. And, when we're talking about archery, we're talking about so much technology change. We're talking about so many different bows, so many different things that we can't be discriminatory toward one another anymore.
No. We have enough enemies outside of it as it is, and that was Paul Kimball's thought. He's one of the officers with me. That he says, guys, we have enough people against us as it is. We don't need more within our group. And I mean, it made them think when I brought up, what if it was you? Because this guy that brought this vertical crossbow couldn't pull back a traditional crossbow anymore, or a traditional compound bow. And I just brought up, I said, guys, what if it was you? What if you were that guy? And one day it might be you when you're 65, like my dad is, and can't draw back a traditional bow, a traditional compound recurve, longbow, whatever. Or if
you're like me and suffer from psoriatic and rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah. And I've been a bow shooter my whole life, and sit here with a nice, wonderful 350 feet per second Hoyt bow sitting in my room that I can't shoot any longer because I can't pull it back comfortably.
Right.
So I had to go to a crossbow in order to get out there and still be able to enjoy bow hunting and still be able to get into the woods. I bought a recurve bow, a recurve crossbow. This thing is a nice bow, but it's nothing super fancy. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to get these people that are seeing pictures of me with this. Well, what happened to you shooting the bow? Thought you were a, compound bow man, and blah, blah, blah. I thought crossbows were this and that and all that, and you're cheating now, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you really don't know that I can't pull that compound bow back and get out of my yard and practice anymore. Yeah. I mean, I could pull it back one time in the stand to shoot a deer.
And that's it.
But I'm not able to get out of my yard and shoot 100 times a week in order to practice and stay good, because a compound bow, you just don't pick it up once a year and go shoot a deer like you do a rifle.
You got to practice with it.
Yeah. So, I'm able now to take this crossbow that I bought, and I'm able to go and sit in a stand, and I'm able to bow hunt early season and enjoy being in the woods. And whether I kill anything or not is beside the point. I'm able to get out there and legally be in my stand a month prior to when I would normally be able to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole. I mean, I was just on Chester Moore's show, like I was saying, and we were just saying, once you begin to lose the thought of what's out there, what is drawing you to hunting and fishing. That heart thumping when the white bass grabs your slab, when that hog walks in to your corn, whatever the case may be. There's not a drug on this planet that can touch that, in my opinion. And there's no natural high like that.
Whenever I was, I don't know, 15, 16, I don't remember how old I was. And it was called 20 Yards of Heaven. And it was all about sitting in my bow stand, and the 20 yards between me and my feeder, that was 20 yards of heaven to me.
Yeah.
Getting in that stand before the sun came up and smelling those smells of that autumn forest, and smelling the pine, smelling the oak, smelling the swamp, even, and sitting there and hearing the little guinea wrens in the leaves that sound like they weigh 350 pounds, even though they weigh an ounce.
Yep.
Or the cat squirrel, gray squirrel, as most people call them, but we call them cat squirrel. The cat squirrels in the leaves, and you would think that a rhinoceros was coming in, and you look over there, and it's a little cat squirrel, a little gray squirrel searching for hickory nuts or something.
Yeah.
And, you get to sit there. That's heaven to me. That is when I sit there and I'm like going, wow. And if I ever lose that, I'm going to quit hunting.
Yeah, I'm too.
When that buck comes in, I don't care if it is a fawn with spots, got two little nubs on the top of his head. I'm never going to shoot him. But my heart gets in my throat and starts sitting there and just pounding like two fellas beating me in the throat with a hammer.
Yep.
And
just to watch it.
I'm just sweaty and nervous, and oh my gosh. And it's nothing but a fawn out there at 20 yards or 30 or 40 or 100, whatever it is. And I've always told my wife, and I've told everybody, if I ever quit getting buck fever, if I ever quit getting that excited, every time I hear or see or smell something, hear a buck grunt 100 yards down through the hardwood flat, whatever, I'm going to quit hunting.
That's solid. I agree. And there's nothing on this planet that is a sport you can engage in for recreation, for meat, for, whatever the case may be, that touches hunting and fishing in the great outdoors, and what it has to offer. And I mean, that's just one thing I think that we need to share with those that don't appreciate the sport as much, or that don't honor what we do in the outdoors, because we are the reason why the outdoors is what it is as hunters and fishermen. Our hunting license, our conservation efforts, the organizations out there. And I promoted on here with Jeremy Beeston a few shows ago, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We just donated a hunt that a youth won for DB Hunting Ranch, so one of the ranches I do marketing for here in Central Texas, and he won an axis doe hunt that we the ranch partially sponsored. And it's just one of those things that, when Jeremy and I were talking about that's one organization that does a lot as far as public land, access and rights and stuff like that goes. And his show, Cast Blast Grill Chill, big shout out to him and Trevor, do a great job of talking about public land, and stuff like that, which in your neck of the woods, that's where a lot of the public land in Texas exists.
We've got the Davy Crockett National Forest. We've got the Sam Houston National Forest. We've got a ton of what is called Type 2 hunting lands. You can buy your Type 2 permit for like $40 some odd. And there are just hundreds of thousands of acres all up and down the Sabine River that are public hunting lands.
Right. No, I think that's great. I mean, and then one of the things before we close out, because we've been going for over an hour, Chester and I talked about on his show is sanctuary hogs, and how states, I talked about this in the last podcast, there's states, municipalities, national forest land, stuff like that don't allow hunting for hogs at night. In a lot of cases, some states don't allow, areas within states don't allow hunting for feral hogs at all. And I'm just like, you want a problem to proliferate itself, if that's even a word? If you want a problem to proliferate and continue to be an issue, just don't do anything about it, because that's the problem we had in Texas with our feral hog problem. I don't think we did enough early enough for it.
That is a great statement, because you know, I find it ironic because you've got all of these educated people, so to speak, that want to throw poison
Yes.
into our ecosystem. They want to throw poison out there to kill deer, to kill hogs, it's not just going to target a hog.
Nope.
This is poison. It's going to kill raccoons. It's going to kill possums. It's going to kill coyotes. It's going to kill eagles, owls, everything that it touches is going to get in the water for you to drink. Yada, yada, yada.
Clean water is
but at the same time, these politicians don't want to open a certain piece of property, a certain land up so that hunters can go in legally and without incident, go in there and hunt and kill. Whether they even just allow you to go in there and bow hunt them, whether they allow you to go in there and trap them, whether they allow you to go in there and shoot them with a gun, doesn't really matter. They need to open it up and at least allow people to go in there and kill some of these hogs. If not, they're going to lay up in those sanctuary woods. And they're going to breed. And whenever those woods get overran and the food sources get low, they're coming out onto Farmer Johnson's hay meadow and they're going to root it all to pieces.
They're gonna have a field day on that stuff for sure. I mean, you just look at the damage they do at any given place. I mean, it's amazing. But my whole point with all that is that hunting is the solution to a lot of that problem. Is not necessarily, and I mean, if everybody does their part and kills those hogs, and everybody, even if you have to pay in some cases to get it done, as far as people's land and not, insurance and landowners, concerns and stuff like that. I mean, it's still all for the greater good, and that's what I've always been about on this show. Is just all for the, the greater good of the environment and everything else.
It's definitely for the greater good. And Chester and I, we talked about this one of the last times I was on his show. We were talking about hogs. Is the fact that I helped with the Texas Hog Hunters Association getting legislation passed that we stopped the warfarin from being used and stuff.
That's why I brought really, that up.
Forefront
you were an
of
advocate.
That with some of those guys and helping.
Right.
But what we run into is whenever I go out here, I've done a lot of hog eradication, and I go out here and I talk to these guys that own land. They're saying, "Oh, the hogs are eating up my fields, my hay meadows, and ruining my tractors." Well, I'll come on your property and kill those hogs. Oh, no, we charge $200 a day for people to come shoot hogs. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Thought you said you had a hog problem. If you're charging people, if those hogs are a commodity that you are selling, then you don't have a problem with it.
Right. And I bring this up every time we talk about hogs. There's that one ranch, and I will not name any names here, but they make this big deal about we're overrun with hogs, but then they charge you by the frickin' pound to clean them on the green weight. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention any names. But I'm just like, that is not the... And the thing is, they have great reviews on Google and places like that if you look into them, because they have enough out-of-staters that they dupe with that they just keep on replacing people because they keep on running Google ads and replacing people, and the bad news doesn't travel fast enough. And I'm just like, man, like one of the guys that I work with in the hunting industry was saying, well, I had a friend that just said he won a hog hunt from this place, and I said, buddy, you didn't win nothing. That's going to cost you about $600 when you're done with it, So, I mean,
that's how they get you in the door.
Yeah.
See, you've won. I've won hunts from places before where won a deer hunt one time. Was going to actually go to this place, but then they told me I could stay in the bunkhouse. I could do all of that. But when I killed something, they were going to charge me per inch of antler. Certain amount of money per inch of antler. I could kill a cull buck or I could kill a trophy buck, but I had to pay per inch of antler.
You're looking for the smallest
if I went out there and killed 160-inch deer, we're talking. The hunt was going to cost me thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just if you're overrun with stuff, don't make it, about your profitability. I mean, that's the thing. And again, I work with a high fence hunting ranch that handles hogs and stuff like that. But I mean, the pricing for that is reflective of, we don't have a problem with them. We stock them in that ranch to hunt them. There's not.
I just like honesty.
Yeah, I do too. That's the whole point of this.
Place that you represent, and you tell me, Jeff, you come on this hunt, here's the price. It's going to cost you this much, and everything is disclosed to me up front, and I say yes, and I come, I have no surprises, and I have nothing to complain about.
I know, it's transparency, and I've written that article back in 2016 about the top 10 things to look for in your next outfitter and guide. I know I bring that up on the show a lot, but those are some good points when you're looking for a big African trip, when you're looking for a Canadian, trip with tours in Saskatchewan or something like that. If you're going on a Texas hog hunting trip, I mean, these are good questions to ask, and I'll try to put those in the show notes again, the links to that, because I did a podcast and an article, a pretty long article about that, about the top 10 things to look for in your next hunting and outfitter and guide, because it's just, I don't know, I'm rambling now because it's getting late, but I just think that it's important to look at that.
We're gonna have to put that together one day.
Yeah,
I've killed one in my lifetime
on
a ranch in Sabinal that was a wild free ranging one.
Yep.
That was an accident because he got under my feeder, but I really want to go get one with my bow somewhere.
Cool. Yeah. Black bucks are, and the thing is, the three most prolific. I talked about this in the show before when I did. I think I called it Axis Psycha, Fallow Omai, or it was one of those things. Anyway, all the exotics about Texas. The three most prolific free ranging exotics is going to be your Axis deer, because there's thousands of them. People have no idea how many exist, especially in Rock Springs and Junction and areas like that out west.
I've seen Axis deer here where I'm at in East Texas roaming wild.
It's because one of the things that I do, and everybody listening to the show knows this, I deal in the trade and exotic of trapping and relocating and selling to ranches and stuff like that to stock them in their ranch. Stockmyranch.com in case anybody want to check that out. But shameless plug. You've got Axis, you've got Black Buck, and you've got Aoudad that run free ranging pretty prolifically. And then when people put them in high fences, they multiply like kittens. So ample hunting opportunities is my point there. And
they've got some of the best tasting meat.
Oh yeah,
and they've got the most beautiful pelt of any animal I've ever skinned in my life and ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
the horns, I'm not. They're beautiful and everything. Not really that crazy. I mean, because they're just straight sticking up, spirally like little horns.
Yeah,
but their coat is so beautiful, and their meat is. I mean, because a lot of people don't realize how small they are. Yeah, there's not a whole lot there.
Yeah,
but
what is there is good.
Are delicious.
Yeah, it's like Axis meat, really. It's really well. They're both from India, so and that's the other thing I was going to say before we close out, because I know we've been going for over an hour. But I love when you and I do these shows. This is great. But I cleaned an Axis deer that had met its demise on one of our trailers on the live sale business, broke her neck. And trying to jump out of the trailer. Basically, it just was one of those things where it was just kind of a mishap, and it happened, and so it wasn't a hunted animal, but either way, it's an exotic, so it's not that big of a deal. But I cleaned it, skinned it, did everything like that. If God ever made a meat for people to eat and an animal for people to consume, it would have been the Axis deer, because they have not as much bone and lots of meat. And I've never seen one built like that, because I haven't cleaned too many of them before and actually processed them down to the bones and everything. And I'm just like, man, and that meat, that whole thing you could chicken fry, man. The toughest parts of it are tender, and so that's the reason why I think that's such a good meat to eat too. So anyway. So Jeff, tell people how they can find you in social, and how people can connect with you with Alpha Dog and everything else you do.
Easiest place to get a hold of me, you can get through Facebook, Jeff Crypto Hulk Stewart. I have a professional writer page. Also, Alpha Dog Blades is my knife making business. You can catch me there. Instagram, I'm the real Jeff Stewart. My goodness, just about any social media, you type in my name and lots of things are gonna pop up, whether you're into cryptozoology, hunting, fishing, trapping, tracking, going and rescuing people that are sitting on their roofs in the middle of hurricanes, whatever. I'm there.
You're one of the key people, part of the was it the Cajun Navy, or was it your own thing?
Cajun Navy Foundation. There's a Cajun Navy 2016. We're not part of that. This is the Cajun Navy Foundation. We're kind of like the group split there.
Okay.
So I'm with the Cajun Navy Foundation. Also have Sunshine Shoulders rescue, domestic and wild animal rescue. And so we rescue dogs. Most of the time it's special needs animals, dogs, cats, things like that, raccoons, possums, owls. I have rehabilitated raptors for the state. You name it. Most of the time, game wardens around here know my number to call me and say, "Man, I got the weirdest thing."
That's awesome. As far as your book, can you tell people where they can get that? The I forget what you call it again. The Jack. Texas Jack. Texas Jack.
Wild Game and Venison Cookbook can be ordered directly through me on my Facebook page, my professional page, Jeff Stewart Writer and Cryptozoologist, or it can be purchased on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
But if you get it on Amazon, you don't get a personally signed autographed copy. And when I send out a book from me personally, sign it, autograph it, write a little something in there, and you generally get a bookmark, one of my business cards with my picture and everything on it for a bookmark. And, they can get T-shirts through me and just all kinds of stuff.
Cool. That's awesome, man. That's great. I forgot you did. I just wanted to talk about that because the last time we were on the show, you were just getting that book in. And I just wanted to at least throw that out there because that's got to be a great. I cannot wait to get my hands on that copy.
Well, also have Wood Knox Volume 2, which is a cryptozoological book about the legend of Bigfoot, and now just finished Wood Knox Volume 4, which it is all a collection of articles, stories by the top people in the field of cryptozoology, and I am lucky to be considered one of the top people in the field of cryptozoology these days. So
that's awesome.
I know a lot of people scoff at Bigfoot and things like that, but there's a lot of animals that were once thought to be legendary and mystical. The mountain gorilla, the Buklang ox, just giant squid. All of those things were once thought to be cryptid creatures, but now have been proven to be real.
That's great. I love having you on the show, Jeff. Thanks so much for joining us, man.
It's always a pleasure, and I cannot wait to come back and we spend another hour and a half talking about everything.
That's awesome. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, after like an hour and 15 minutes of talking with yours truly. I love Jeff Stewart. What a guy. Just a great heart for conservation, for kids, for the future of the sport, for just the love of the great outdoors. I mean, it's not hard to find a guy like that, but to find a guy that's as well spoken as Jeff is, and to find a guy that has those kind of values and cares about animals and wildlife as much as he as much as he does. I just love that guy. So great guy. You can check him out. Again, all the information on how to find him, Alpha Dog Blades, and all of his other stuff is going to be in the show notes. You'll be able to check all that out, as well as links to articles, links to products that I've reviewed, and things that we talked about on the show, all in the show notes as well. You can check about that on the description and elsewhere, and really good stuff. So if you've not done so already, I say this every show, so I apologize for Jeremy and Orlando and the rest of you guys that listen to the show every single podcast. Please, if you've not done so already, sign up for our newsletter. There are 3. They come in a week. Tactical Practical Tuesday, Wildlife Wednesday, Thursday Texas State of the Outdoor Nation. We also have, typically on Mondays and Fridays, special emails that we send out, and we're doing a bunch of those this summer with different product sponsors that are doing email blasts with us. We just had some stuff from PowerPole that went live this week. We've got some other stuff from a bunch of other companies, Johnson Hummingbird, Minn Kota, all kinds of different sponsors that sponsor our stuff. Hobie for kayaks. I'm trying to think who else. But anyway, it's just really cool stuff. So stay tuned for that on Mondays and Fridays. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have the regular newsletters. A lot of great newsletters. 2 stories in each Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday we have the Texas State of the Outdoor Nation, which is all of the different stuff from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Thursday has its own set of stories, and basically all of Tuesday and Wednesday stories. So anyway, this is really cool stuff. All right, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys again. If you're not done so, please subscribe to this podcast. It is free. You get a new one every 2 weeks. You get to listen to me ramble on at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 now, at night about, different things about the outdoors when I run solo shows. And then you'll hear me do a lot of stuff at ICAST. Hopefully everything goes well with getting all that set up. But that's what we plan for our next shows, is the ICAST shows, which will be the following week after this week you hear this one. It should be ICAST. I don't know what's planned for that yet. It's kind of good. We kind of just show up and set up the microphone and just hit record and do what we do. But Cal will be there. Cal Gonzalez, who I've had on the show several times. I've got Chester Moore will be there. We'll probably be doing some late night shows there and releasing them while we're at the show, and just really fun stuff. What I like to do with these shows, guys, is just cover, things that are going to be of value to you as a fisherman, things that are going to help you hunt and fish better in the outdoors. Every time I do a show, that's what it's all about, is bringing you that kind of stuff, and things that are just going to add value to you. That's what I'm all about, is adding value to you so you have your best life now in the outdoors. That's really what I'm about. And I hope I've done that for you guys that have been hardcore listeners since the beginning. I know some of you guys that come up to me at shows and all kinds of different opportunities that you've seen me in public and said that to me. Some of you guys that listen to the show I've taken out to lunch. Some of you guys I've seen at trade shows and conventions and consumer shows and stuff like that. It just means the world to me to if you drop me a line, if you find me on Facebook, I'm easy to find there. DustinsProjects.com online for my personal email address, and phone numbers even on there too. You can give me a call or send me a text message. I just love hearing back from you guys, because this show's a labor of love for me. We have sponsors and stuff for it and everything, but I do it all by myself, everything. And the show notes, the production, all that stuff. And for me to just be able to connect with you and be able to share this with you and add value to your life is what it's all about for me. And that's one reason why I do it and why I keep doing it. And like I said, if you're not done so already, check out Chester's podcast, or his radio show gets turned into a podcast every week. More Outdoors, KLVI, 560 AM, I think it is. Out of Beaumont, Texas, and you can find his shows, Chester Moore, Moore, on iHeartRadio, and he has an iHeartRadio station that basically plays all of his podcasts. The one coming up, I believe, the same week that this podcast releases is the one that we're going to be doing together, because he had an issue where he had to do a pre-recorded show. So I've got 3 segments on there with him about exotics in the outdoors and hunting hogs and all kinds of different stuff, kind of like what Jeff and I talked about on this podcast, but more in depth with Chester's ideas and wildlife expertise and everything like that, which is really cool. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, reading, and listening. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. We'll see you next time.